promoting dialogue.
It's midday in Dakar, 1 o'clock in Lagos. Good afternoon and many thanks for staying tuned to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasted on 94.9 FM and worldwide on wadr.org. Welcome to Newslink, and here are the top stories. Nigerian army says 14 civilians killed and 7 others injured in an attack in the west of the country. Ghana's biggest opposition party, NDC, demands release of provisional election voter register.
This electoral commission refused to give us the register, only to come out with another letter on the 8th of August.
Gambia's government considers and reviews draft constitution amid concerns of inclusivity, and the World Health Organization declares Mpox a global public health emergency.
The emergency committee met and advised me that, in its view, the situation constitutes a public health emergency of international concern.
Please stay tuned for details of these stories and more.
Here is Imo Edit with Newslink.
Many thanks for joining us, and a warm welcome to our listeners in the Gambia, Ghana, Liberia and Sierra Leone. We'll begin in Niger, where at least 14 civilians were killed and 7 others injured in an attack carried out by armed men against villages in the commune of Mehana in western Niger and near the border with Burkina Faso. According to the Nigerian army on Wednesday, the toll is heavy and tragic, adding that the rapid reaction of the forces engaged in the Lakal Kane operation in Mehana made it possible to neutralize 2 terrorists and burn a motorcycle used by the attackers. The Nigerian army noted that despite these tragic events, the authorities urge the population not to give in to psychosis and to continue their field work with courage and determination. The town of Mehana is located in the department of Terra and the region of Talibari. Recall on Monday, July 22, at least 15 Nigerian soldiers were killed in an attack on a Nigerian army patrol in the same department of Terra. The ECOWAS Chiefs of Staff have completed their 42nd ordinary meeting in Abuja, Nigeria's capital, where they reviewed the security situation in the West African region. Several decisions were taken at the end of the meeting, including the activation of the ECOWAS standby force. Oguberika has more details in this report.
During this meeting of the ECOWAS Chiefs of Staff held in Abuja from August 7 to 9, General Christopher Musa, head of the Nigerian Army, first emphasized the importance of accelerating a common security response in the region. The Chiefs of Staff stressed the urgency of strengthening sub-regional intelligence collaborations for a more effective fight against violent extremist groups and transnational organized crime. The ECOWAS Chiefs of Staff also called for the activation of the ECOWAS standby force, proposing to bring together 5,000 men, some of whom will form an anti-terrorist brigade. This force will be crucial to the ability of the region to responding quickly and effectively to security threats in the region, and ECOWAS officials stressed. The heads of the armies of the ECOWAS member countries invited to the conference of heads of state of the organization will be responsible for mobilizing and providing the necessary resources. The West African organization's chiefs of staff have also approved a security mission in Sierra Leone with a strength of 1,200 men. The decision was taken by the organization's heads of state and government at their summit in December 2023. This force will be headquartered in Freetown throughout its mission in the country. As a reminder, this move is a response to the attempted coup in Sierra Leone at the end of 2023.
Oguberika reporting there, and that report was filed in by Alpha Abubakar from the French service. Ghana's largest opposition party, the National Democratic Congress (NDC), is demanding the release of the provisional voter register for the December 7 general elections. According to the NDC's Director of Elections, Dr. Omane Boama, the delay in providing the register shows a lackluster nature with which the Electoral Commission is approaching the exercise and could result in a substandard register which will undermine the electoral process. But the Electoral Commission says it is nothing untoward, assuring that the register will be provided to the political parties by Friday, the 16th of August. WDL's Accra correspondent Nadi Tete report.
The opposition NDC expressed deep concern over the EC's handling of the release of the provisional register, warning that the delays and what the party described as apparent mismanagement could potentially lead to chaos. Deputy Director of Elections of the NDC, Dr. Rashid Tanko Computer, indicated that the EC had earlier communicated to the parties that the provisional register would be released to them weeks prior, only for the EC to fail to honor its word.
This Electoral Commission wrote to us on the 18th of July 2024 that we should bring external drive, that is 2 terabytes, for them to load the provisional register for us. We complied. 2 weeks down the line, this Electoral Commission refused to give us the register, only to come up with another letter on the 8th of August.
However, the EC's Director of Training, Dr. Srebo Kweku, says there is no cause for alarm, indicating that the register will be given to the parties on Friday, the 16th of August. According to the EC official, the mop-up registration exercise delayed the process.
Initially, we had not planned to do the mop-up, but when we decided to do the mop-up, it means that we have to complete the compilation before we can give the list out. As far as the law is concerned, we have 90 days after compilation. So we are within the law. But we told them we were going to give it to them, but we couldn't complete. So we said that Friday, God willing, to have it. So we'll give it to them on Friday. So we are working with them, and I believe they should understand the system. And so when we give them the rest, it should be a composite of 2020, 2023, 2024 limited one, and 2024 the mop-up. So it should be a composite for them.
In response, the NDC stated that the late release of the register severely limits the time available for political parties and stakeholders to review and address any discrepancies before the exhibition exercise, which begins on the 20th of August.
They are giving us the register on Friday, which is 16th. So that means we just have 4 days to tease out all these 40,000 plus polling stations to our regions for us to take a second look at the register, scrutinize it before the exhibition starts. Why? Why are they doing this?
For WADR, Nadidi Tete, Accra.
In Liberia, at least 5 opposition members have been dismissed from the government for reportedly using their social media pages, particularly Facebook, to criticize current President Joseph Boakai and other government officials. The 5 opposition figures, all of the main opposition, Congress for Democratic Change of the former President George Weah, were employed at the Monrovia City Government, otherwise known as Monrovia City Corporation. WDR's Arlington Popper has been following this development and now report.
In a separate communication dated August 13, 2024, in address to the 5 employees, the mayor of Monrovia, John Siafa, said the services of the 5 individuals have been terminated with immediate effect. He said their termination emanates from consistent and deliberate action portrayed on social media by reportedly insulting President Joseph Boakai and other public officials. He continued as saying, and I quote, "This administrative action is inconsistent with Chapter 6, Section 6.2 of the Code of Conduct, subsection 621.32, neutrality and participation in strike and protest, and of the Human Resource Policy Manual of the Monrovia City Corporation, end of quote, among others." When contacted, however, one of the affected employees, Alpha Gray, denied any wrongdoing, accusing the city government of witch hunting.
This morning in my presence, 5 persons received their letters. Alpha Gray from the communication section, Richard Singwe, Kendra, including Masakwe and Boy Kukwe. Since the end of the elections, December, I have not written a single post whether condemning Joseph Boakai nor any government official on Facebook. For me, I just see it as a witch hunt. I just see it as people who identify me as a sedition, who the former mayor Jefferson Koji took to City Hall. They just took advantage.
As it stands now, the head of the Center for Transparency and Accountability in Liberia, Anderson Miame, has taken to his Facebook page criticizing the authority for dismissing these people for exercising their right to speak or expressing themselves. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, I'm Darlington Popper in Monrovia.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
The government of the Gambia has issued a statement indicating that it has considered and reviewed the draft constitution that was presented by the Constitutional Review Commission, CRC, on the 30th of March 2020 and has decided, after thorough deliberation, to re-gazette the constitution for eventual tabling before the National Assembly. The draft will initially be gazetted from Thursday for a period of 3 months and subsequently for another 10 days as required under the 1997 Constitution. In its current form, the draft, according to the government, reflects the national values and ethos and is consistent with the existence of the Gambia as a sovereign, independent, republican state with a multi-party democracy premised on democratic principles with periodic elections based on universal adult suffrage, ending the statement. Well, we have more on this on our guest interview segment. In the meantime, farmers in the Foni region of the Gambia are voicing deep concerns as ongoing conflict between Senegalese soldiers and MFDC rebels in Casamance over the past years significantly impacted their lives. The tension, which has lessened over recent months, has caused severe disruptions in the border villages. These farmers are struggling with restricted access to their fields in the Senegalese part of the villages due to the conflict. Sanklu Janko recently visited the area and filed this report.
As the first light of dawn breaks over the border village of Jifanga in Foni, Gambian farmer Lamin Jiba readies his equipment for a day's work. With a worn heart shielding him from the sun and tools in hand, he sets off towards his fields, his stride filled with determination. But the serene morning is deceptive. Lamin, like many others, faces mounting challenges due to the ongoing conflict between Senegalese soldiers and MFDC rebels in neighboring Casamance.
Yeah, they affect our farming because of the Senegalese soldiers, which are opposite us. When we get inside the bush, they fire. When they heard a noise, they keep firing at the bush. So that's why people be afraid to getting inside Casamance to farm groundnut and other things.
The clashes have disrupted his farming routine, threatening his livelihood and casting a shadow over his hopes for a bountiful harvest.
Yeah, before the conflict, half of the village used to farm at Casamance. But now it's a risk to get inside and farm. You can able to farm your groundnut up to at the end of harvesting. Casamance start their war. Sometimes the groundnut used to spoil because of there's time to harvest. So it's always happening here sometimes.
The safety concerns are also a major issue, with frequent reports of clashes spilling over into Gambian territory, further endangering the local population. Alaji Baji is another farmer in Jifanga.
During the war, people are afraid to go to Casamance to farm. You hear rounds are flying in the country. The rounds are a normal cross to Gambia. You feel confused because you don't know the round where it comes from. Sometimes you will be sitting, you see rounds dropping at your area.
Authorities in the area, including the National Assembly member for Foni Bintang Karanai Bakari Baji and National Assembly member for Foni Kansala, Almami Jiba, have numerously expressed their frustrations over the impacts of the conflict on their people in the border areas during parliamentary sessions. Worth noting is that no clashes have been reported between the Senegalese soldiers and the MFDC rebels since President Diomaye Faye came to power in April 2024. And as we approach mid-farming season, Gambian farmers are hoping for a return to lasting stability that will allow them to resume their agricultural activities in the surrounding areas and support their communities.
Sanklu Janko reporting there. You're listening to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Here's a reminder of the top stories. Nigerian army says 14 civilians killed and several others injured in an attack in the west of the country. Ghana's biggest opposition party, NDC, demands release of provisional election voter register. Gambia's government considers and reviews draft constitution amidst concerns of inclusivity. And still ahead, the World Health Organization declares Mpox a global public health emergency. We do have the press review, guest interview, and sports news. Please stay with us.
You are listening to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal.
Don't forget you can listen to us live on wadr.org, and we are also streaming live on YouTube and Facebook. In Guinea, several households were flooded in downtown Kaloum on the night of Tuesday to Wednesday by the heavy rains in the Guinean capital Conakry. While no loss of life has been reported, there has been extensive material damage. The transitional authorities are appealing for calm and reassuring that all measures are taken to come to the aid of those affected. Here is a report by our Conakry correspondent Chernafa Ibrahim Abadi and voiced by Christopher Aticho.
In all, nearly 200 families were affected by the bad weather, which provoked a spontaneous demonstration by the victims, blocking traffic for several hours. Osman Usila, who lives in the Tombo district, is one of the affected. He says, every year, we experience the same situation during the raining season. When it rains, we often can't sleep because the water gets into our house. You can see for yourself, my clothes and all my other belongings are wet. Tawel Kamara, another of the victims, who says he lost everything in his house, is pointing the finger at the anarchic building that ended up blocking the passage of the water.
When the first rain stopped at 5 a.m. on Wednesday, we saw flooding throughout the neighborhood. This caused major material damage. We are asking the state to take responsibility because before, when it rained, there was no flooding in this neighborhood. But now, when it rains, the water doesn't circulate, causing flooding.
The Director General of the National Agency for Emergency Humanitarian Disaster Management, who was at the scene, promised that help from the country's authorities would be forthcoming.
Discussions are underway with the neighborhood chiefs and the local authority to come up with solutions to provide a humanitarian response and take care of all those affected.
Throughout the day, the streets of Tumbo and Corentin neighborhood remained blocked by disaster victims who were dispersed by tear gas by security forces.
That was a report by our Conakry correspondent, Channel of Ibrahim Abadi, and voiced by Christopher Aticho. Still talking flood, 52 people have been drowned on Wednesday in the Tahua region of Niger, northwest, according to state media. The government news agency said the heavy rains recorded from August 12 to 13, 2024, in the department of Atilia, 2 passengers transport vehicles coming from Tahua for the weekly market of Telem says sank into the Kori of Garin Ali, 70 kilometers north of Tahua. It added that the provisional toll stands at 52 deaths, while several people have been declared missing. Since the start of the rainy season in early June, Niger has been experiencing significant rainfall. According to a report by the Ministry of Humanitarian Action and Disaster Management, 94 people have died and 93 have been injured in floods as of August 7 in the 8 regions of Niger. The World Health Organization (WHO) on Wednesday declared Mpox a global public health emergency for the second time in 2 years, following an outbreak of the viral infection in the Democratic Republic of Congo that has spread to neighboring countries in Africa. According to the WHO, the situation was very worrying and warranted the highest level of alarm under international health laws. Here is WHO Director General Dr. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus.
Last year, reported cases increased significantly, and already the number of cases reported so far this year has exceeded last year's total, with more than 14,000 cases and 524 deaths. Today, the emergency committee met and advised me that, in its view, the situation constitutes a public health emergency of international concern. I have accepted that advice. The detection and rapid spread of a new clade of Mpox in eastern DRC, its detection in neighboring countries that had not previously reported Mpox, and the potential for further spread within Africa and beyond is very worrying. In addition to other outbreaks of other clades of Mpox in other parts of Africa, it's clear that a coordinated international response is essential to stop these outbreaks and save lives.
That was WHO Director General Dr. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus.
This is the Newspaper Review. Stay abreast and find out what the top stories are in your country.
This is the Newspaper Review.
The Newspaper Review.
Well, we cross now to Accra as we join Nadide Tete for the press review.
Greetings from Accra. Let's find out what the dailies are reporting today. We'll start off with the Ghanaian Times newspaper today, one of the national newspapers. Front page, it says here, alleged land grabbing by political class. Will publish list of public lands. Lands Minister promises, insisting that public lands are safe, intact and secure. That's on the front page of the Ghanaian Times newspaper. Other stories on the front page: Kolebu Renal Unit to resume outpatient service next week, and tidal waves wreak havoc at Shama. And the final headline on the front page of the Ghanaian Times newspaper: Ghana Health Service heightens surveillance to detect monkeypox cases. And it comes on the back of the WHO declaring monkeypox a global emergency. Now to the Daily Graphic newspaper. Front page of the Daily Graphic newspaper: public lands secure. That's according to the Minister for Lands and Natural Resources. Other stories here: I'll build prosperous nation. That's according to Alan Kwejo Chemating. And present circumstances must influence your vote. Togbi Afede to the electorate. And inflation eases to 20.9% in July. Food inflation also declines sharply. To the Chronicle newspaper now: state land capture tag is politically motivated. That's according to the Lands and Natural Resources Minister. Also here: campaign on prudence, not populism. Institute of Fiscal Studies urges government and NPP to launch manifesto of lies. That's according to John Mahama. To the Crusading Guide newspaper: government establishes foundation for job opportunities. That's according to the Vice President, Dr. Mahmoud Baumia. To the Custodian newspaper: let's now go to the Daily Guide newspaper. Front page of the Daily Guide newspaper: Ghana will be better under my husband. That's according to Samira Baumia. That's the wife of the Vice President. Other stories here: release provisional register, NDC to the EC. And also here: WHO declares monkeypox global emergency. And that'll be it for the Daily Guide newspaper. Now to the Daily Post newspaper. Front page: Vice President Baumia now speaking like an opposition leader because he has failed, says Mahama on day 2 of his Volta region tour. To the Daybreak newspaper now: YEA to release 10,200 artisans to job market. The Metro Lens newspaper: release provisional voter register now. Director of Elections for the NDC, Dr. Omane Boama, charges the EC. And that'll be it for what the papers are reporting today in Accra, Ghana. It's back to you now.
Many thanks, Nadi Tete, with the newspaper review.
Politics, analysis on major news, social matters, and all. This is The Guest.
In this segment of the news, we'll take a closer look at the draft constitution of the Gambia that was presented by the Constitutional Review Commission on the 30th of March 2020 and has decided after thorough deliberation to re-gazette the constitution for eventual tabling before the National Assembly. Well, while the government say the draft reflects the national values and ethos and is consistent with the existence of the Gambia as a sovereign, independent Republican state, some stakeholders worry that enough consultation was not done. Our guest is Saliu Tal, former president, Gambia Bar Association, and co-founder #Gambia has decided. He started with the review of term limits.
I mean, yeah, sure. I think having a term limit definitely is highly welcome. And many Gambians will probably know, even the current 1997 Constitution, there was a recommendation from the committee for a term limit to be inserted in the Constitution, but the military junta at the time deleted it. So I think having a term limit is definitely a positive development. Obviously, there are also different arguments. There are people who believe that the term limit should include the incumbent's current term. Some believe that that's discriminatory. But I think that is a political question. But for me, at least having a term limit is definitely a step in the right direction. And also, obviously, having a provision that actually puts on a legal footing execution of international crimes is also a positive step. It actually gives it a constitutional standing, which will also help in Gambia's quest to fight accountability.
Well, having said this, is this all-inclusive? Were all the stakeholders involved in this consulted before this draft will be, tabled before the National Assembly?
I just think that the jury is still out because we just got the press release yesterday, and a copy of the draft was uploaded by the Ministry of Information. And we are now diligently looking at at the gazetted constitution, and we have already started working on it, and we've noticed many substantive changes, which in due course we will sort of highlight for the public to be guided as to whether or not the changes are in line with the spirit and purpose that we as Gambians set about from 2017 when we changed the dictatorship, all the way to when we came together and had a consensus on the draft constitution, which was rejected by Parliament. Because what is very strange, I would say, about this process, the fact that in the previous process, it was rejected through a democratic process. But the process that we went through as a country was very, very inclusive. It was participatory. It was transparent. Obviously, when it went to National Assembly, it was rejected, which is allowed in a democracy. But now we have, and in that process, the different stakeholders participated and had their opinions or views or perspectives and inputs in that document. The judiciary contributed, the executive contributed, the legislative arm contributed, civil society, religious groups, interest groups, diaspora, women, youth, you name it, professional groups, professional associations, all contributed in what was the CRC 2020 draft. Today we have an instance where one of the stakeholders, that's the executive, unilaterally looked at the draft again and made their own inputs without consulting any of the other stakeholders, departing from the very principle that brought us together. They, at least having looked at it and made their own amendments and changes, they have not even seen it fit to give us, the public, share these changes they've made. The least we expect from the executive, who are one of the stakeholders, right? They owe the government at least to say, okay, we went along to look at the draft and made changes. And these are the changes we made, and this is why we made the changes. Because this constitution is not for the executive, it's for the Gambian citizen.
That was Saliu Tal, former president, Gambia Bar Association, and co-founder, #Gambia Has Decided. Here is Sport with Sangli Janko.
Hello there, a warm welcome and thank you for joining us. The WAFU Zone B Women's Champions League qualifiers witnessed a goal feast on Wednesday as AO Essential of Burkina Faso and Nigeria's Edo Queens recorded emphatic victories in their respective Group B matches. At the start day, Buaki Annex AO Essential delivered a masterclass performance, overwhelming A's guard with a resounding 6-1 victory according to CAF official website. The Burkinabe side's attack was spearheaded by the impressive Munifatu Helbi, who opened the scoring with a sublime calling effort from outside the box. Helbi then turned provider, setting up Adama Congo for the second goal before halftime. The second half saw AO Essentials capitalize on defensive errors with Helbi and Swadogo Aisha expanding the lead. Despite the brief moment of hope for A's guard when Rahimi Musa Hassan pulled one back, Deborah Gures laid the brace ensured AO Essential recorded the tournament's biggest win to date. And that's it for sports. It's back to you.
And we've come to the end of this edition of Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Christian and Maudju for the technical assistance. Let's keep the conversation coming on all of our social media platforms, X, formerly Twitter, Instagram, @WADR News. Coming up at the bottom of the hour is our flagship environment program, Enviroscope with Abdullah Hassan. I am Imo Edit. Good afternoon.
And many thanks to you for listening to Newslink via Hot 104.3 FM, Newmi FM 94.0,
Hilltop Radio 104.7 FM,
and Veritas Radio 102.9 in Banjul, the Gambia. We also appreciate our listeners in Liberia via Alternative Youth Radio 98.9 FM, Lofa County.
Radio Kagama 94.5 FM, Nibe County, DCN Radio 91.3 FM, Riverside County, Wakat FM Radio, Banga, Liberia, Radio Gulf FM 91.3 Sierra Leone.
For you listening via Radio Pad 95.1 Damango, Savannah region, and on Royals FM 104.7 Wenchi, Ghana, we say a big thank you. Remember, West Africa